We're going to talk about, oh, thanks for recording. We're going to talk about the Ohio school grants. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have some time for some Q&A. So let's get into it. Todd, I know that Adriel is an agency here in Ohio that helps people get involved with becoming foster care parents. But there's so much more. Can you talk a little bit about ways that people can become foster care allies?
Sure. Well, we really appreciate the invitation to be a part of this conversation. I think it is so important. For years, I was working in the school system and really was not aware of some of the challenges that kids face on the other side, you know, from the home side, and children that get displaced from their homes for various reasons. I would say that our biggest challenge right now is that the foster parents, the need for foster parents is greater today than it has been in the past ever. We have more children that need placements. They need a loving home. They need someone to take care of them either temporarily or permanently. But the need is so great for foster parents. And that's whether we look nationally, and in the last 5 years, that need has grown from 300,000 to 425,000 in the nation just in the last 5 years. And we could talk about Ohio statistics, but it's no different in any state. And so the good news is that the number of pathways to become a foster parent and some of the obstacles have been removed. And so through discussions and through learning and through listening panels, the governor's office, the changes have really made it more accessible to become a foster parent. And Heidi's going to talk about that more in depth. But the point is there any possible way that you can help a child? And I have to say a couple things before I get to my point. No child in foster care invited themselves into foster care. You know, so I think we will all agree that this is not something that they wanted for themselves, but because of neglect or abuse, these children found no other solution, or these counties found no other solution than to put a child into foster care. And so the real need is for some of the older children now. We're seeing a huge growth in the number of older children that need foster care. But here's the challenge. Children that have been neglected or abused or hurt, I'll give you an example. A child with no food may learn to steal. A child that is afraid may learn to push people away. And so the older a child is in foster care, sometimes the more difficult they are to place in foster care. And so I know Adriel, for example, really tries to spend a great deal of time and effort and support for these parents that are taking on tougher placements, tougher children, maybe older placements, and maybe more difficult behavior issues. We are teaching family certified. We provide an extra consultant during the first year of their foster care experience. And we really try to help with those families that have decided that they're going to step up and be a foster family for a child in need, and be a foster family for a child that's perhaps older, or perhaps that displays more behavior issues. But at the bottom line, we have a tremendous need in Ohio. We have a need for all ages. I don't want to minimize the need for younger ages, but the number of kids in foster care is greatly outpacing the number of foster parents that we have to place children with. And I think that's the core issue. That is the thing that I'm so glad that you've invited us on to talk about. We need foster parents in order to place kids.
I love what you said about no child invited or signed up for foster care, because there's so many kids that are wonderful and loving and great kids, and no fault of their own, they've ended up in this situation.
You know, I say to parents all the time, we have to look beyond their immediate behavior, and we have to see that wonderful child, that young adult, that adult that child is going to become. We have to look beyond the immediate. We have to look beyond the initial behavior or whatever, and see what that child can become. And that, I believe, is the most rewarding part of being a foster parent, and that's the most rewarding part of working with children, period. You know, whether it's in the school system or whether it is in foster care, you see what they're going to become. But sometimes you have to look a little bit deeper.
I know there's lots of ways. You mentioned, that you're really going to focus on that need of foster care parents. By the way, I never introduced myself to everyone on the call. My name's Keisha Boone, and I am a Junior League of Columbus volunteer. And I'm also in the process of becoming a foster care parent. My husband and I have about 4 hours left, and we love Adriel. Adriel is our agency. And I especially love the fact that I can take my foster care parenting classes online. The pandemic kind of started that, but it's been a great way for my husband and I to manage our schedules and still be able to give back. But there's lots of ways you can be an ally and not be a parent, right?
Certainly. CASA workers, guardian ad litems that support children. I don't want to be cliche, but it takes a village, and it really does. That is not an understatement. And there are so many ways that you can help out. Even if you sign up to be a foster parent and you decide that it's not the time to take on a full placement, you could be a respite placement. You could have somebody come to your house for the weekend. You could help in ways to give the foster parent, the full-time foster parent, a break. And so there are lots and lots of ways. And as I said, there are lots of pathways. We're talking about kinship care. We're talking about foster parents and the levels of foster parents, becoming a treatment level. And I don't want to get into Heidi's presentation, but there are many, many ways. And I think it all starts with that email to adriel.org or that phone call to adriel.org, and we try to sort out what is it that you would like to do and how do you want to help children, and then we help them, guide them through the pathway, just like you're going through the pathway of training and ultimate ODJFS, Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services licensure.
That's awesome. And I think it's a great segue to what Heidi wants to share with us.
Absolutely. There's so many ways that you can get involved. And to be a foster parent, there's been no better time than right now to start. As Keisha mentioned, the training requirements for becoming a foster parent are a lot easier to get through right now because we offer all of our trainings as virtual trainings, just like this, on a Zoom call with a live trainer. So you can do all of your training hours from the comfort of your home on your couch, and it's easy. And then once you get through that piece, we have staff members, licensing specialists who help you through the rest of the process. They help you continue your paperwork. They answer all of your questions about what it means to be a foster parent, what it takes to be a foster parent. Because a lot of people think that it might not be for them, but are happy to find out that, a lot of different kinds of people can be foster parents, and they are very much in all parts of the state, every county, every neighborhood, specifically because we don't want children, in one part of Ohio having to move clear across the state. We would hope that they would be able to stay in their school and stay with their friends and teachers that they know and continue to participate in their sports and clubs while they're in foster care for a short period of time, because most kids are just in foster care for a short period of time and then go back home to their family once things have sorted out.
I think that's a great point, Kim, that you're making. Hey, Heidi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think that's a great point that you're making. I think there's a couple people that can't really hear you, so I'm just going to ask you to yell at your computer unless you have a way to make it louder.
Sure. Yeah, I was just saying that we need foster families in all areas of Ohio because we don't want to have to move kids to other places, away from their schools, away from their friends, away from the connections that they've made, because they will go back home soon. They won't stay in foster care forever. So we want to maintain that as much as possible. And we have a lot of support at Adriel for the families going through the process. And then even after you become a foster parent, we have all kinds of support. We have 24/7 on call. We have events for foster parents. We have a support group for foster parents. There's a lot of extra trainings that we offer at no cost to our foster families. And so when you join with Adriel or another agency, you get a lot of support and help along the way. And you have all kinds of choice in the matter, whether you become a foster parent to have a full-time placement of children or in your home, or whether you want to help with respite, or whether you need to take a break for here and there. That's perfectly fine. You get to choose who comes into your home at all times. So you have ultimate control there. So
that's fantastic. And I know that, it's so important to keep, foster care kids in their communities. There was, a recent article that came out about, young kids and, not really having the support that they need. Can you talk a little bit about, any barriers that might be out there, anything that you want to debunk about, this process, or foster care parents, or even children that are in care?
absolutely. I mean, I've been working with foster children for a long time. And, when people find out that I work in foster care, a lot of times they're like, oh gosh, that sounds really hard. And I'm like, no, it's wonderful. These kids are amazing, and at all ages. We have kids who come in who are infants and toddlers and school-age children, middle schoolers, all the way up through high school. And the kid that we work with, we wrap around support to them too. When they're with Adriel, we have a clinical department that works with them if they need therapy, to talk through their feelings about what's been going on, and that helps them. They have a consultant with Adriel that checks in on them and their foster parents to make sure everything's going okay in the home. And then when they transition, they're able to move up into our Bridges program as they age out of foster care. If they're still in foster care at that age, we continue to provide support to those young adults through the Bridges program. So we really do help them all the way through. And again, children in foster care are not in care because of anything that they've done wrong. It's just a situation that was not safe for them to remain in. And so they needed to be in foster care for a period of time. So the kids are wonderful. They do have issues though, and we work the best we can as a team to make sure that we help them through this process and this problems that they've, incurred. So they get a lot of support from their foster parent. Go ahead.
If I could add one thing to the foster parent, it's going to be the greatest job that you've done in your life. I think it's the most meaningful job that I did as a foster parent, and you are the greatest advocate for that child. There's a stigma, I'll speak the truth here. There is often a stigma with foster care, and the foster parents can be the greatest advocate for the child going to the public school, talking about their educational needs, talking about their social needs. You're with them all the time, and a foster parent can have a transformational effect on a foster child. And I think that it's the greatest job that I ever did. It was the most transformational job that I've ever done.
I wish I had Adriel when I just had my regular kids, because the parenting classes, the teaching family model, even, just learning all these different tools as a parent has really helped me be a better parent. I think, America could benefit from these classes. So thank you both so much. I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to share, but if so, I'll give you that time now, and then we'll move on to talking about the Ombudsman bill that was recently passed.
I was just going to add that there's a quote that I love that Josh Shipp, had said that every child is one caring adult away from being a success story. And I really think that that's true. With the right supports, every child can be a success story. So we just need to wrap our love around them.
That's a great quote. We have an awesome success story with us in Jamole Callahan too. So, but we won't get into that just quite yet. I love that quote. Thanks for sharing it, Heidi. And thanks so much, Todd, for all your insight. Kim, hey, You've been busy at the State House.
Yeah, we have. We have.
There's been a lot of work that your team has been doing at the Children's Defense Fund. Can you talk a little bit about the recent bill that was passed?
Yeah. So this week is actually really exciting. Just to provide a little bit of context, several years ago, I mean, before I even really started with the Children's Defense Fund. So the Children's Defense Fund is of Ohio. We're a national organization, but we have a state chapter in Ohio. We do public policy advocacy. So we go to the State House, we talk to legislators, and we really try to change policies and create like meaningful change at the systemic level. And so I had been at one of these forums that the governor had designed for listening to people from all walks of life in the foster care system. So from youth who have been in the foster care system in the past to foster care parents. And one theme that came out of those, and one thing that I was really struck by, was this need for a youth ombudsman. And when I got involved with some of the advocates who were really passionate about this, I realized that CDF has this platform, right, where we can elevate that and amplify that in a way that we can really start to kind of get the attention of the people in power. And so, yeah, so this week is important because the Youth Ombudsman started their job this week. Her name is Jenny Stotts. There are two, actually. So there's a Youth Ombudsman who their role is specifically to hear concerns from youth who are in care about, if they're having concerns with their placement. And thankfully we have, people like Heidi and Todd that are really being intentional about making sure that the caregivers are well equipped. But in some cases, we run into these situations where the placement is not a good, it's not providing the needs that they have. And as they try to express that to their caseworker, it's being dismissed. And so when they fail to kind of have those concerns addressed, they need an advocate. They need somebody who can kind of be the adult that is going to say, no, we need to take this person's concerns seriously. And so that's what this Youth Ombudsman is really designed to do, is to have that hotline and that, that website where they can go. And it's really about enforcing the rights that they have in care. So if their foster care giver is saying you're not allowed to have any contact with your siblings, for example, they can try to find a resolution to that, try to find a way for that young person to have their needs met and their rights enforced, really. So with that, that was a big success for, we got it through a bill, House Bill 4. The bill passed, I think in early 2022. And then just this past week, they named Jenny Stotts, and she started this week. So it's really exciting.
What a great tool to give our youth so that they have someone they can call and talk to, and they can express their issues. What was happening before this? Were youth getting into trouble? Were they running away? What was happening before?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some cases, somebody who doesn't know how, like a young person who doesn't have a lot of resources and, isn't really equipped to deal with this, one default that they might fall to is running away, right? And that provides a lot of risks to them. Obviously, that presents risks in terms of human trafficking and other, we never want a child to run away. And what happens is, unfortunately, if a child runs away, that becomes a status offense. And that is something that goes on their record permanently. So there's, some young people that went to the State House with us and talked about how when they, it was kind of part of their, the adults in their lives were saying, we need to charge you with this offense. And now he wants to join the military, and the military is looking at his record and seeing that he has this status offense of, being AWOL, absent without leave is what they call it. And that stays with you. And there's also, it leads to you being housed in a detention facility in some cases. And so that's just something that we really want to prevent in cases where, youth is really just trying to solve a problem in the best way that they know how. And so we have we're having conversations with legislators right now about, can we reduce the punishments for running away? Can we make it a little bit, can we expunge those records so that's not something that stays with them? Because really, that's an offense that, once you're an adult, there's no reason for that to remain on your record.
They already have a hard enough time as it is. What do you think, Jamole?
So, and I have a perfect example. Again, I aged out eons ago, but I can remember I had a foster parent who actually had a stroke, and she was older, and she had a stroke, and her older son, and I was 16 at the time, lived right next door. So, of course, all the emotions of mom having a stroke, not knowing what's going to happen, he blamed her stroke on the two of us boys that was in the home. So he physically wanted to fight. Now, mind you, at 16, I'm still very tall, right? So I guess he just had the notion to again, he wanted to physically fight. And, I knew that if I did engage, how much more trouble I could possibly be in. So I did run. I did go AWOL, but I called my caseworker and said, hey, this is what happened. And this is where I'll be. This happened on a Friday. I didn't get picked up until Monday. But years later, finding out, just kind of reading through that piece in my file, I got so many labels just from that. And the full story wasn't even in the file. The story of an adult trying to fight a teenager wasn't in the file, but all of the labels that I had were in there. So when we started talking about the Ombudsman's office, these were one of the reasons. How can young people, as Kim said, have a voice to go to exactly when they need it? We've heard so many cases just in the system across the country where there have been negative outcomes, right? Negative outcomes because we did not have anybody to go talk to. We didn't have anybody that would truly listen to our concerns and our voices. And a lot of us know a lot of those cases personally. But this office gives that voice to these youth. And so they don't have to be afraid anymore.
Thanks for sharing that story, Jamole. Thanks for not beating up that old man. I think you probably could have took him. But
he was 32. He was 32 at the time. So, I think so. Then again, I don't know.
But what traumatic experiences these kids have to go through. And Kim, thank you so much for all of the work that you and your team at the Children's Defense Fund have been doing to get this office up and running. I know you've been working on it since 2018.
Yeah, well, I came on and I saw some names of some other people that were involved with it before I was. I kind of see my role as stepping in 2020, but this work has been going on since 2018 and even before. So I was just really proud to be a part of it.
Well, thanks for helping us get it over the finish line. And I know that there's a lot of other work that's being done in foster care, some recent developments that have come about around housing grants and also college tuition. Jamole, did you want to talk a little bit about some of the current things that have been happening?
Oh my God, how much time do we have? Just listen, I get tickled pink and that's hard to do, right? Every time I just think about the progression of what's happening right now. For the last 7 going on 8 years, we've been advocating and writing housing reform for youth aging out of foster care. We were able to get that done 3 years ago, where now we have, and we went at it 2 different ways. One, went directly to HUD and said, you have the authority and the power to do something. How do we do it? And the other piece was legislatively. And so the Fostering Stable Housing Opportunities Act, which is now in law, it passed unanimously in January, offers 2 more years on federal housing supports for youth aging out of foster care. But it also helps those young people connect to family self-sufficiency opportunities that HUD has now. The FYI voucher is a 3-year voucher that any young person who ages out of foster care is able to tap into. And you can tap into that voucher or apply for that voucher all the way up until your 26th birthday. And even if you do it at 25 and a half, you still get the full 3 years to have that rental assistance through HUD. So we were able to do that in literally a record amount of time. If anyone on the call knows anything about federal policy alone, it's hard to get anything done in Washington, D.C. in a 4-month span. From the time we met with the former Secretary of HUD, Ben Carson, to the time that FYI was implemented and we were doing our first event in Wisconsin to hand out the very first voucher, was 4 months.
Wow.
Of course, the legislation took a lot longer than that. You know, when you're dealing with politics and what each party wants to see, and that I think was the difficult part about it, and having to rewrite and go back and say, you know, one side, are you happy with this? And go to the other side, are you happy with this? And can we truly meet in the middle? But we were able to do that. And now, going into our 3rd year of FYI, we've housed over 1,500 young people across the country. Just recently, HUD just added another $1.4 million to that voucher bucket. And I think within the 3 years, we've spent a collective $22.3 million in housing supports.
Wow.
So, which is why I said, listen, I get tickled pink when I talk about this, because, you know, one thing that we want to make sure, and I'm sure Adriel does a wonderful job of this, is making sure that there's a clear path to self-sufficiency if that young person cannot go home. It's our job, right? It's our job.
Absolutely. It seems like Todd has some interesting stories he probably wants to share if he wants to.
Well, you know, I'd love hearing that. What a great success story. That makes me feel wonderful. Had no part in that, but it just makes me feel good, you know, that's out there and available. You know, we work with our young people to begin thinking, well, our first priority is, of course, reunification. And we have a family preservation program that really does work hard to reunify families. We even get in ahead of a removal to do coaching with families to try to correct issues that maybe are going to get in the way and cause a removal. So Adriel is really preventative at first, and then very much restorative. We want to restore the family. But sometimes, and in the case of my foster placement, that just simply didn't work. And then adoption is one possible path. And so, but some kids are in foster care until the age of 18. And that's what I was so pleased. And when we got involved in Bridges a couple of years ago, Bridges helps young adults get on their feet, make good decisions. There's a support that is often missing. And I've said this for years. When a child turns 18, even in the best of conditions, even, you know, coming through a typical developing family, are they really ready to step out into the real world? I'll tell you, I wasn't. I called back to my mom and dad. I asked questions. I was not completely ready for that. I don't think anybody is. You have support when you turn 18. Well, foster kids, it literally is a switch. There is the day they turn 18 and man, it shuts off. And so you're on your own. And that's why I just love hearing programs that are going to help them with housing and help them with, you know, getting on their feet. And in Ohio here, Bridges has been a very, very powerful instrument for kids for support with their housing, helping with signing a loan, you know, for the first time to buy a car, helping with a rental contract, helping with relations, you know, disputes that come up that, you know, we need somebody to help out. And employee relations, that's a big one. When you turn 18, you know, you're going to go out and you're going to get your job, and how are you a good employee, and how are you going to be a productive member of society? So we just keep saying that over and over and finding new ways to help kids become that. So I love listening to your story. Thank you.
Listen, I want to say something, right? And Todd, again, just another moment to be tickled pink. When we thought about, I know, I mean, you can use that. Just don't, I'm not going to trademark it. But when we envisioned how Bridges was going to look back in 2014, when we started advocating for house schools, this is exactly what we envisioned. We envisioned Ohio giving our young people 3 more years of everything that you just said. And to be able to now sit back and say, look what we've created, look at the opportunities, and to hear that as an agency, you've embraced the nature of Bridges, it just warms my heart.
Thank you. We're new, only 3 years into it. So you said it was 3 years ago so we were right in at the beginning, but I feel like we're still learning too. And our areas are focus Toledo and Columbus, but we'd really like to see that grow out more. A lot of, I don't think we're unique in this. Many times, it's not only finding foster parents, but it's finding employees in the workforce right now. So, we have to find the person that is willing to be a coach, the person that's willing to be that consultant. So, I'll make a shameless plea. We need employees as well as foster parents. We need people that are willing to step into this work. And it's not easy work. Coaching is not easy work. And family preservation is not easy. And Bridges is not easy work. But we need people that say, this is how I can help. We didn't talk about that earlier, but this is how I can be an advocate for children.
No, that's really good. And I'm glad that you shared that, because there are people on the line that are looking for ways to help, not just as a parent, but other ways. So it sounds like you have some job opportunities on your side.
We have a waiting list already of clients ready for family preservation work, coaching work, and we have openings ready to go.
That's amazing. I know that there's a lot of work that's been done around Bridges as one of those tools for foster care youth that are aging out. Kim, earlier this week, we were on with the Chancellor and the Department of Education, Jamole and Kim. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that, but there's a lot of work being done around college, post-secondary education vouchers.
I'll say this and I'll pass it off to Kim. I think our responsibility as a system is to be parents. It doesn't matter how you slice it. When you assume responsibility for us, and I say us because I still identify as a young person that was in care, you are now our parents. And what do our parents do? They provide every opportunity, whether it be housing, post-secondary education, the whole nine. Now we're able to focus on education. There's a lot of things happening in the state that the Department of Higher Education is already doing. They are partnering with 19 universities and colleges across the state to provide short-term certificate vouchers. And that's any young person that is experiencing foster care or can have $2,000 towards a certificate program. And they can stack those, right? It's crazy. They can stack them. But I think now we're saying for those that really want to accomplish a 4-year degree, this is the opportunity for us to put some tuition waivers in place that's the less they have to worry about is how school is going to be paid for.
Kim, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, and I would say, becoming an ally of foster care is really, so there are so many different levels to it. So Shauna is a really good example, and Keisha as well. Like we developed a proposal. We called up the folks in charge and we said, hey, would you be willing to listen to us? Would you be willing to talk with us? And so we sat down with them, and we had a phone call with them. And, the support that I offer with Children's Defense Fund is I can go and do the nerdy stuff and, put a nice logo on it so that it has that, that platform that can be recognized. And we, provide the numbers and do the research. And we say, these are the outcomes and this is why it's important. But really, it's the voices of the people like you who coming to the table and saying, I'm an elected, I've elected you, I'm a constituent, and this is important to me, and I want this. And so And that's where I would invite people, if you really want to become an ally. I think this campaign, we don't have a campaign yet, but we're just having initial conversations about it. But I think this is a real opportunity to influence policymakers. Several other states have done this, so that basically what it is that they waive tuition, room and board for anybody who has experience in foster care as a teenager. Colorado just did it. They just passed it last week. Mississippi has passed it. I mean, this is not out of reach, and Ohio really should step up to the plate. So I would just encourage you, if there's any, if you're at all interested, hit me up in my email. We would love to connect on this opportunity.
And Kim is selling herself short. She is a data geek, but when we were talking with the chancellor, she was sharing insights and lots of data around states and other states, like she mentioned Mississippi, who have full college tuition, room and board for any child that has experience in the foster care system. And the stories, my story, Jamal's story, Shauna's story, just all those little stories all together make a huge impact in sharing with those legislatures. So thanks for leading the charge there. And my oldest is 18 and she's a college freshman, and I don't even know how I'm eating this week, but yes, it's expensive, right? And what a great way for children in Ohio who've been in foster care to have support and to be able to pursue and have that pathway, like you were talking about, Todd and Jamal, to something great, something better. This is great. This is really great discussion and conversation. I know we only have about 10 minutes or so left, but I do want to open it up to anyone that has any questions. Todd, there was a question in the chat. They were asking about your family preservation opportunities. Is that a virtual opportunity to coach, or is this more like in person? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We, during the pandemic, we did several virtual coaching sessions. It's much more difficult. And so at this point, we believe the most effective is when you sit down with the family, you're in the house, you're working. There we go. Somehow I got myself muted. It is a face-to-face kind of thing, but there are several different categories. So there's coaching ahead of, so Children's Services might let us know that there's a family that could need some help, and we would apply a coach. And that could be anything from once a week to more intense for a long period of time or a short period of time, and in many, many geographical regions. The second would be perhaps the visitation during reunification, working with families, whether that's enhanced visitation, it might occur in a home, or whether that's in visitation in one of our facilities. That person that is monitoring the visit, writing the notes, that becomes very powerful for the judge then to make decisions. I know our documentation from the visit monitors, the supervisors, is a very big part of making decisions on permanent custody or returning a child or temporary custody, those kinds of decisions they make. So in person, but lots of different types of employment in the family preservation.
Thank you for that. We did drop in the chat both Heidi as well as Todd's email over to Adriel if you are interested in learning more about job opportunities or just wanting to volunteer your time. You can reach out with those contacts. It looks like Juanetta has a question. Juanetta, did you want to come off mute and ask your question?
I do. Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. We can.
Okay, perfect. So I don't know if it's so much as a question or a comment, or we'll figure it out along the way. But anyhow, so I started the journey to become a foster parent prior to the beginning of the pandemic. And then kind of when the pandemic hit, a lot of things changed, of course. And I even kind of sold my house and downsized a bit. And so I wasn't able to, well, once I did that, I was like, well, I don't really have room now. But part of the problem that I had, or the concern that I had beginning some of those classes were, I would meet with, I connected with other folks and network with other folks that were foster parents or going through the process, and they were dealing with different agencies than the one that I was. And what my major concern was, because I'm a single mom, and I was concerned with how I would maneuver for appointments and respite and different things like that, just being by myself. And I learned that different agencies offer different sizes of support, like some places didn't help with transportation to appointments or different things like that. So is there any way, is there any reason why things are so different from agency to agency? And how might a single person be able to most fully use the system in order to be able to be a foster parent? I would love nothing more than to give this extra love I have to another child, but it seems to be a little bit more difficult for a single person to do so, in my experience, or at least the agencies that I had been in contact with.
Thank you, Juanetta, for that question, and also for the effort that you're putting in to be a foster care parent. I'm going to throw this one over to Todd and Heidi.
I'm happy to talk a little bit about that. We do have a lot of families who come to us that are single parents and want to foster, and so you're one of many. So it's definitely possible. It's definitely an experience. You do need more support. You're right. And we do a lot of work with our single families in particular, making sure that they're well connected with our other foster parents, as well as our staff and the support that we provide with our our consultants who provide that support to the families. So yeah, we do offer a lot of support, Adriel, whether it's, if something happens in the middle of the night and you have a question, you have someone that you can call from the foster care department, whether it's deciding what kind of placement is right for you with the space that you have available, and whether or not you want to do respites versus full-time placements. We have a matching department that kind of works with that with you as well. Your licensing staff help you through the foster care process to help you become that foster care parent. And even if you've done your classes a while ago, they might still be valid. So definitely reach out and check with us because the classes are good for 18 months. So if you've done them recently, they might still count towards your licensure at this time. So definitely reach out.
Todd, why are there such differences from foster care agency to agency?
Yeah, we're a nonprofit organization sponsored by a church, the Mennonite Church. So for 125 years, we've been developing this process. We have a way to do things that probably supports the parents more than maybe some organization might pay a little bit more. So there are differences, but a 24-hour phone line, a second consultant to help you in more challenging times if you have a more difficult case, a consultant that comes out to your house every 2 weeks to help you, a training department, the clinical services. In other words, every child that has been removed from their home has experienced trauma. We just, you don't need to look at it any more deeply than that. It's trauma. And we have a clinical department that will assign a clinician to that family or to that child and work with them. I hate to make it so simple, but it's all how you use your money. And we believe that, of course, we want to give as much as we possibly can to the foster parent in their per diem. So every foster placement does get a per diem, and that is reimbursement on anticipated expenses. So that's not like an income. That is a per diem that is a reimbursement on anticipated expenses. We also pay for mileage if it's a trip over, and I'm going to probably mess up the number of miles, but I think it's 25 miles. So if it's a longer visit, if it's a longer appointment, we pay for that. But every foster care agency, sets a dollar amount, provides certain resources, and those resources are probably discerned differently by some organizations compared to others. So what's the most important resource? I think that's why some people gravitate to our organization, because of that support that we provide face-to-face, in person, really working with the families and children. Maybe it's what I believe to be the outstanding training. Maybe it's the clinical services, but every agency gets to make decisions how they support their family, and we've chosen to support them by face-to-face and in person and support resources.
Do you know of any tool that helps Juanetta maybe compare different agencies as she's kind of on that path? Maybe not.
I'm not aware of any. I think when we do an orientation session, we really try to introduce them to Adriel, who we are, the kind of work that we do, and we're very transparent about, where our resources are going. But we're very transparent about that we're a church, we're a Christian organization that really drives our mission. And so we're connected to the churches, which, just last week, 2 different organizations provided parties for our foster parents and our kids, the spring picnic kind of idea. We allow we have a donor that provides an opportunity for our kids to go to Cedar Point and picks up the cost for anybody that is in our organization. I could go through hundreds of different ways that we use our donations or we use our money to support kids, but those are all decisions that's made at the Adriel level, and then that would be made at every single organization. But I'll have to say that when you see a kid walk into Cedar Point for the first time, the immediate phrase is "best day ever." Can we write all of this? Is this all available to us? And it's pretty neat. And so that's one way that we use our money. But we are a nonprofit organization, Christian organization, church supported, donor supported in many ways. But we also have 44 contracts with counties that allow us to do the work with children's services in each county.
Juanetta, does that help you? I know it helps.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And it's given me a lot to think about. So I'll more than likely be reaching out pretty soon here to find out how you can help me on that path. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for asking that question. I mentioned earlier on, I'm not sure when everyone joined, but my family's in the process of becoming a foster care family. And we chose Adriel as our agency just from word of mouth and location proximity to our home. But, of course, now during the pandemic, the office in Dublin closed. So now there's one in Westerville, but I just think, it is a little bit of work to find the right agency. We've been really pleased with Adriel. So good luck to you. And thank you for what you're doing. Is there any other comment or question? And if not, I know we are at 1 o'clock. I hope that you guys all enjoyed your lunch and enjoyed the discussion with our panelists here today. I want to thank Kim and Heidi, Todd and Jamole for joining us and for sharing their insights around foster care. I want you guys all to just continue, being great stewards of the foster care industry, of the foster care system, and for helping. And have a great Thursday.
Thanks so much for hosting. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.